Hello everyone, we have a game against Payman224, rated 1035. Let's see what he does. So he opens up with g6, very passive. Because of this, I'm going to immediately take control of the entire center. He develops his bishop, which pressures our center, but not a big deal. I'm simply going to develop a minor piece. You can choose whichever minor piece you want to develop. I choose this to support the center, specifically the dark square he's attacking. Okay. You have so many different setups. You can just bring out your knights. You can go c3. You can go c4. You can go h4. I'm going to go throw in h4. This comes with a threat, so it's not a waste of a turn. How is this a threat? h5 is a pretty severe threat towards his king side, which just opens up my rook development very early in a normal chess game. Coordinating with my queen on the light squares towards where he might potentially want a castle, so it could end bad for him depending on how he plays. Okay, so he goes knight out, principled, develops a piece, hits a pawn. Fine. The drawback, he has no pawn presence in the center, so whenever we can kick a knight, we consider the move. If we kick it, he's going to jump in the center and threaten our bishop. We don't want to trade this bishop for the knight right now, so we do kind of want to kick it, but not this turn necessarily, so let's just keep playing. I almost want to just go h5 and continue our plan, but if he takes in the center, how does that end? Okay, so we'll develop a piece and protect this pawn, and maybe we'll just go h5 next. Okay. He develops a piece, reattacks the pawn. However, this knight also controls this square, so if we do kick the knight now, he can't really hunt their dark square bishop. If he jumps into the center, any of these squares, we could just trade it for our knight, bring his bishop to one of these squares. Then we can play h5, although then he can go bishop g6 in that end of the line. I'm going to push this knight around from its best square, release control over h5, and this will allow me to push easier. I was going to sack my rook for his knight and just open things up, but I'll just kick his knight around. He can jump into the center, which he probably should. And then I'll just leave it there. Unless he goes here. I don't want to lose my dark square bishop for the knight. Or do I? You know, still just go h5, let him take. I can take back. So everything that I'm doing is a lot better if he's already castled. But I'm still going for it anyway. Just trying to see how a human opponent responds. I have two pawns in the center. I have two pieces out. My queen has good scope. You know, he doesn't have any of that. He has some nice bishops, but now this one's locked in. The light square bishop's nice, though. He has one nice piece, which coordinates with his knight, which he has to move. You know, at any moment, we're ready to go queen d2, creating this battery, and then castling long. So, okay, so instead of going towards the center, he goes to try to stop our pawn push. The problem with this is we have more than one pawn, and we can keep kicking him. Our rook does hang, but who cares? Or do we care? If we push, he takes our rook. We take a knight. He's up in exchange. He's not going to take our pawn. And if he just does anything else and we take, he opens up his rook. It's not that enticing. So first let's protect our rook, and then we can kick this knight afterwards. How do we want to protect our rook? Um, you can go f3 as a lever pawn. You can go... Oh no, you can't go f3 because of the knight, but we could just develop our knight probably, and it covers the diagonal, and we can go g4 next, I guess. And also it's just a normal development move. We're not looking, it doesn't look like we're doing anything specific, but we kind of are. So he castles into our attack, which is probably a bad idea. And now after g4, his knight looks trapped. So we wanted to attack the king side anyway. It happens to win a piece. Why can we do this on the flank and not lose the game? Because we have a better center. If he wants to prevent stuff like kingside attacks, he has to attack our center with c5 or d6. And then once these lines open up, you know, it's going to be a lot harder for us to do stuff over here. But we already, you know, it's move 8 and we're about to win a piece. 3 standard developing moves. I put 2 pawns in the center and then I pushed 1 because it hit a knight. Nothing too fancy or sophisticated. h4 was the only advanced move that you probably won't play in your games. But hopefully you can see some of what it's supposed to do. I mean, the other idea behind it is to push it, let him take with the knight, and then sack your rook. Okay, so he takes our knight, but we can just take and this doesn't change anything. And not only is the knight hanging, but the rook is hanging. So he's panicking, and because he doesn't have a way out, he's just making random moves that are blunders. And our position is phenomenal. And you can see he didn't move any central pawns, he only did the double Fianchetto. And it's extremely easy to get overwhelmed and overrun if you play this way. I recommend as a new player, always put 1 pawn in the center. If you go for, 3 pawns in the center, I can't make an arrow like this, it's going to be a huge responsibility and you may end up losing those pawns. As you get better at chess, definitely do that. But if you're just starting out, put 1 pawn in the center, put the other pawn on the diagonal just to support it. Now everything's protected. It's a lot harder to mess up. Anyway, he goes to the side to protect the rook and hang the other knight, but he's saying better to hang a knight than a rook. The problem with this, again, is if we take this knight, it doesn't solve the problem of the other knight. He's still losing that piece. So we get to develop while taking a piece, and for free. It's just complete domination. Game over, of course. And he might resign. He should resign. You can see when you haven't moved your pawns, your rooks especially kind of do nothing. His queen also does nothing in this case because it needs at least 1 diagonal to operate on. So he goes c5, trying to do something in the center. This is the right idea, but too little too late because you're losing 2 pieces. So he breaks down our center. We'll just recapture. Aiming at the bishop. We can open up the king next turn. We can long castle. Lots of moves. And so his idea is clearly to take this pawn because it's hit twice. But we're going to allow him to do that with a strong developing move. We're going to long castle and say, hey, hit our bishop with your pawn, but then we'll take the pawn hitting the queen. And so that sneak attack will net us this bishop trade, which is the defender of his king. If his bishop's not here, you can always push h6, which creates mating check patterns, and then push h5 with your second pawn. So he moves the queen out of the way. This allows us to just open up the diagonal without losing any pawns. He takes back. Just for simplicity, we're going to throw in the trade and take the defender of the king. And then we're going to throw in h6. If he takes it, we don't mind because his king's coming out. If he goes back in the hole, we'll just play h5. He does take it, which is kind of crazy. Um, I want to go here and prevent his king from going back, but after queen here, how am I doing this? I guess you can't if he finds that move. Whatever. We'll just go h5. Now we get to player move h5, which opens everything up, and he's going to have to waste time moving his king back and forth. He should now run with his king again, wasting the turn. And then we're going to open things up. He should take with the f pawn to create lateral protection and hit our queen. So he does go back. Now we don't want to play h6 unless you have a guaranteed checkmate, which we might. So if we play h6 now and he goes in the corner, we go check and checkmate. If we play h6 and he goes to the light square, we still put our queen here, and no matter what he does, that's still checkmate because his queen cannot get to this diagonal except by sacking. The reason this didn't work with the other pawn is because the other pawn was hanging, so he can take it. But if he did go back, we still could have gone for the checkmate. That's why he took it, actually. So even though I said taking is crazy, he had to. So yeah, whoops. But still obviously bad. What was I saying? Yeah, so we definitely don't want to open things up and then go down. I mean, that's still good. But then you have to go down the long way of winning, which is you take the pawn, he takes, opening the f file. You move your queen to the h file, hitting the h7 pawn. He tries to consolidate it somehow by moving his king, and then you have to get your other rook involved, or your knight. And you don't want to deal with all that when you have a nice two-move checkmate on the board. That's ridiculous. And so that's why it's nice to know checkmating patterns, because then you don't have to waste your time. And if you look at our pawn and king and knight, beautiful construction. King b1's even better, but it takes a turn. Our bishop is only here because it took a piece, although it's also blocking coordination against our king. This is domination on the dark squares, only possible because he played g6 on move 1. You see how his first move created weaknesses that came back to bite him on move 19? So you think, oh, it's g6. That's not a weakening move. He's just going to fianchetto. It's fine. But no, it is a weakening move. It weakens the dark squares, both of which I'm using right now to checkmate him. Does that mean g6 is a bad move? No. But every pawn move is a weakening move. Even the best move, e4 on move 1, weakens a ton of squares, because it can never support those squares any further. So he thought that if he spent a bunch of time, I would have had this pre-moved, and he can use this diagonal. But we know better, and we didn't do that. Now we can pre-move this, because nothing he does matters. Okay, let's go through the game. We have center and development. Now we have center and development. Now we have development, center. And now we have this move, h4, absolutely not necessary. You can bring out your knight, you can bring out your other knight, you can play c3, you can play queen d2, you can play bishop e2. There's probably other moves, but I just named a bunch, so that should be enough. I choose h4. It's, when someone puts their pawns on these squares, the fianchetto squares, they're asking to be hit by rook pawns. And rook pawns are always expendable pawns. So that's what I do. It's a little earlier than you might do otherwise. You might want to develop first, but I'm just attacking right away. and he just develops. And now we develop towards the center. Now we have a free improving move. Why is it improving? It doesn't improve our position so much as it messes up his. His knight's pretty good here. Now it has to move. It's a lot worse here. It's already plus 2.3, which you could say is just a completely winning advantage, more or less. And it's only move 6. Move 6. And it's mostly because of the center. I mean, you do get these nice bishops, but you don't want to just do that right at the start of the game. You want to maybe put a pawn in the center first, then Fianchetto, you know, that way you don't get overrun. So we just develop a piece towards the center. And I mean, look at our position. And we didn't really do anything. And then he castles into our attack, which I said was crazy, and it's immediately plus 4.5. We just hit the knight, it's a free piece. Then he blunders a piece, free stuff, plus 7, free stuff, force move, and then king safety, but more than that, development, plus 9.4, plus 9.4. So we just take this to open up this diagonal so we could trade the bishops, which we do. Now it's mate in 9, forced mate in 9. So we play the correct move. It opens up the H file for our rook. We get this pawn out of the way. We play the next one. It's mate in 4. I don't know what his best move was, if not this, but we just go here and then checkmate him. Very simple. 98% perfect game. All because, you know, Fianchettos are good because this is generally the, you know, the strongest diagonal of the bishop, controlling the center. But don't just start the game like that, right? Okay, you have one Fianchetto. Now, just like the engine's saying, get a pawn in the center. Although even here, white's going to push past, and you still have to understand, you know, center. You can't just Fianchetto here because it makes no sense. You have to play something like c5, breaking down the center. Anyway, Fianchettos are good, but don't blindly just do them. Hopefully this helps. Develop your pieces, plan the center. Good luck in your chess. Goodbye.